What is going on, guys? So today I wanted to talk about something that has been very controversial among NBA and NBA fans, and that is the play-in tournament. Now, there's been a lot of talk about it. Luka has said he doesn't like it. Mark Cuban, who owns the Dallas Mavericks, said he doesn't like it, but the conversation became even more apparent when LeBron James had something to say about it. So he basically, they asked him about it because the Lakers are in that area where they're basically in the play-in tournament, and they asked LeBron how he felt about the whole thing, and he basically said whoever created that shit needs to be fired. That's what he said. Now, I have some thoughts on this, and it might not be popular among people on the internet, but I'm gonna say it because I feel like I have to get it on my chest. I waited to see how everyone would react to it, and now I'm like, okay, I need to get my thoughts off. So yeah, let me do that. Before I do that though, over 90% of the people watching this video aren't even subscribed to this channel, so if you haven't already, please be sure to hit that subscribe button and also turn on your notifications so that you don't miss an upload. And yeah, alright, so I got that out of the way. Now let me first say this. LeBron James is wrong about this play-in tournament thing. I don't agree with him at all. Now why do I not agree with him? Because, okay, first of all, the obvious, right? Why did LeBron have something to say about it? Why did Luka? Why did Mark Cuban? It's very convenient when they talked about it, right? Because obviously their teams are in that play-in tournament. When Mark Cuban and Luka were saying stuff, it was because the Mavericks were in 7th. And, if the season had ended, they'd be in the play-in tournament. So, of course, they're not going to like it. So, they complained about it. I'm sure they're not complaining now when they're in the 5th seed, right? They're not going to it's likely they're not going to be in the play-in tournament. So, you don't hear them complaining now, right? Because they're not in it. But now that the Lakers are in it, the Lakers are 7th right now, or at least tied or whatever. LeBron had something to say. So it's very convenient, right, that they're complaining about the play-in tournament because their team's in it, right? Like, if their teams were number 2, number 3, then you wouldn't hear a peep from them about this play-in tournament, right? So obviously that's the one thing, the hypocrisy, right? Everyone's talked about that because it's just so obvious, right? But what is it about the play-in tournament that I personally love? Now, obviously, like, the format that I have this year, I don't really like it that much, but it is something that I do like, the idea of it, right? I think they should have done what they did in the bubble, where you had, if the 8 and 9 seed were like a couple games apart, you would have them play, and then whoever wins that would get the 8 seed. I like that a lot more, but this is still very interesting. Now, basically, the biggest reason for why I love this tournament is because it creates a more interesting season, and the games matter more. The regular season matters more. There's not as much tanking going on. It just creates more stories, more interest, because there's actually something worth to play for, and there's actually some stake in it. Because we are a week away from the end of the regular season. Ends in not even a week, like a few. Actually, yeah, today's Monday, so yeah, the regular season ends in a week. So nobody would be paying that much attention to these games if it was a week before the regular season in a normal schedule, right? Because it's like, okay, let's just get this stuff over with. None of this matters. We already know who's going to be in the playoffs. Let's just get this shit going, right? That's how it always is every year, right? Like, I'll be completely honest. For me, after the All-Star break, I'm kind of checked out of the regular season, with the exception of, some, interesting matchups, right? But other than that, after the All-Star break, I'm kind of checked out of the regular season, and I'm like, okay, because we have an idea of who's going to be in the playoffs, right, by that time. So it's like, okay, let's just, get this over with. I want to get the playoffs to start, right? But this year, that's not the case. Like, for example, today is May 10th. I'm going to be watching the Pacers and the Cavs play today. I'm watching the Pacers and the Cavs play a week before the end of the regular season. I don't even consider watching them during the regular season period, but because it's a week before the regular season and there's play-in implications between the Pacers and my Bulls that are like a couple games apart, yeah, I'm going to pay attention to the game because I want to see what happens and what it means for my team. See, that creates more interesting, and you can ask a lot of these teams, how much more interesting is this regular season? As trash as it has been, right, with all the injuries and all of the COVID stuff, right? This season has not been as enjoyable, I'll be completely honest. But these last few weeks, actually, I'd argue the last month or so of the regular season have been super interesting and super fun to watch, because not only do you have like, okay, yeah, Steph Curry's going crazy, Russell Westbrook's making history, but these teams at the bottom, not even in the bottom, like the you know in the mid tier of the conference or in the bottom, there's so much to play for, because like the seedings all matter. There's playoff implications, and because of the fact that like, you could be a 7 seed, lose a couple games, and you're out of the playoffs. Like, how interesting is that? And how many interesting stories does that create, right? Like, obviously the team sucks if you're the Lakers and you're the defending NBA champions and you expect to not even be nowhere near the play-in tournament. But at the same time, if you're there, you're there, and I don't think you can complain about it. Yeah, obviously there's a lot of excuses, right? Hey, LeBron and AD have been injured for a long time. Hey, there's a lot of COVID restrictions and guys have been in and out, right? Like, that's fair. But at the same time, right, all of these teams have dealt with it. All these teams have dealt with injury. All these teams have dealt with COVID. So if your team is still in the play-in tournament, right, like, I mean, what can you do, right? Like, hey, and if you wanted to not be in the play-in tournament, then you should have played as well as you have. I feel like, obviously, look, I don't want to make it sound like I'm being too hard, because there's actual legit reasons for, like, the COVID stuff is real, the injury stuffs are real, and I don't want to dismiss any of it, right? But at the same time, if you're in that position, you're in that position, and, if you're the defending NBA champion, you should have higher expectations, right? So you shouldn't be complaining that you're in this position. You should be like, all right, we should be able to take care of this easily and get ourselves in the playoffs. So, that's the one side of it. The other side of it is, if you're a team like the Grizzlies, for example, right? Last year, you were in that play-in, right, against Portland. You were the 8th seed, but it was just too close. So you play Portland, and they beat you, right? And you're out of the playoffs. How close you were to making the playoffs that year, right? And this year, you're pretty good, right? You're a good team this year. The Memphis Grizzlies have been good this year. Even with Jaren Jackson being out a long time. Even with a lot of injuries, right? Even with Ja Morant carrying the load a lot of times. The Grizzlies have been good this year. So, for them to be in the 8th seed, for them, the play-in tournament is very good for them, because it means that, hey, it gives a team like us that has been playing well all year a shot, right? And that's the biggest thing. A lot of these teams get a shot. Now, obviously, whatever happens in the playoffs happens, right? Like, nobody expects these teams that are in the play-in tournament to, like, beat the number 1 seed or beat the number 2 seed, right? But there's some competition. There's some interesting stuff that happens, right? So I don't see why this is a bad thing to have this kind of competition. I just don't see why. And there's a lot of different implications, right? The West is super interesting because now the defending champions are in it, and they could play the Warriors, so you could have LeBron and Steph, playing each other in the play-in game. That's ratings galore. That's interest galore. LeBron versus Steph with playoffs at stake. That is such a great setting. So I don't see why you would complain about that being a thing as a fan. I'm not talking about the player's perspective. I'm just talking about as a fan. Who wouldn't want that? LeBron and Steph against each other in the play-in tournament? I would love to watch that. If that happens, damn well I'm going to be tuning in. Ja Morant versus the Spurs, with a young team like the Grizzlies that have been fun to watch and have been making incredible progress as a young team this year, for them to potentially make the playoffs, that's awesome for them. Even the teams that aren't in there, like, for the Pelicans before Zion got hurt, I was like, hey, let's see what the Pelicans can do. Maybe they can go on a run for these last couple games, get a good stretch in, and maybe they can make it in the play-in tournament. Or, hey, maybe the Kings could. But then, obviously, Zion's hurt, De'Aaron Fox is hurt, but that's not going to happen. But that's still something interesting to talk about. So, that's not an issue at all. And I'm just talking about the West, right? For the East, it is even more interesting. Actually, not more interesting, but still very interesting, right? Because now you have the Miami Heat, who went to the finals last year, and the Boston Celtics, the two teams that were in the conference finals against each other last year. The both of them are basically teetering on that play-in line, like 7-6. They're both basically like turning on, basically like switching places like every game. So that's a big deal. And obviously tomorrow they play against each other, and whoever wins that game, if the Heat win that game, they're going to be the tiebreaker, and they're going to be the ones who are going to be in it. So whoever loses the game tomorrow between the Heat and the Celtics, they're basically going to be a lock for the play-in tournament. That's so interesting. I don't see why, as a fan, you wouldn't want to see that interest, right? Like that storyline like that, right? Two teams who were one of the best in the East last year, best in the league last year, and now they're both fighting for playoff position. That's so interesting. That's so interesting. And then, you know, hey, the Celtics could play the Hornets in the play-in tournament, and hey, the Hornets, the last time they played the Celtics, they were amazing. They were hitting every three. They were passing the rock like insane. The defense, they were able to shut down the Celtics. So imagine the Celtics fall in the play-in tournament and the Hornets beat them. That would be amazing to watch. And that would be so cool to see a young team with the rookie LaMelo Ball beat a Celtics team that is supposed to be, you know, a team with, you know, two superstars and all this talent. You would expect that, right? So there's so much interesting stuff that happens with the play-in tournament, and I don't see why people are complaining about it. So, I mean, I love the play-in tournament. Obviously, you know, I don't think this format is the perfect one. I feel like they could do something better. I don't know what, but this, the way it is right now, for me, to have this much interest in the regular season 1 week left is something that we have never had. And for there to be that, for me to be watching games so closely at this time, you know, and for me to be, you know, paying attention to all the stakes, looking at the bracket every day, that's so interesting. I don't see why that's a bad thing. So, yeah, basically, you know, just to sum it up, I basically just, you know, ranted a lot. I basically rambled on. But my key point is, I think the play-in tournament is a good idea. You know, you could argue about maybe this specific one is not the best, but I think the play-in tournament itself is so cool, and I love that they did it. You know, and the sad thing is that they said they were going to make it permanent, but now that LeBron said no, who knows? They might not even bring it back next year, which sucks because all the interest that you have is gone. So, I don't know, man. I hope they keep it permanent. You know, maybe they can tweak it. I would be fine with that, but yeah, the play-in tournament's interesting. And, you know, it's interesting for LeBron to complain now when last year he was, you know, the one saying, hey, we need a play-in tournament. We need a play-in tournament. But it's like, yeah, you were the one seed. Of course you wouldn't mind. Alright, I think I got that off my chest. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy, please be sure to leave a like and comment down below what you think about this play-in tournament. Man, this is interesting and controversial, to be honest. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments about this play-in tournament. You like it, you hate it, let me know. And if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so that you don't miss an upload. And yeah, thank you guys as always for your continuous support, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.